Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, One Piece chapter 965 is out. So if you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. Now that you have, let's begin. How does this flashback keep getting better? You know, it's funny how this flashback turned into pretty much everything that we could have wanted. You know, I was so hesitant to put my expectations on this flashback because I wasn't sure how long it would be. I wasn't sure what Oda felt comfortable getting into as far as the amount of material concerning Odin on Whitebeard's ship. I wasn't sure, but that seemed a little bit more likely than perhaps his time with Roger. But as we're getting deeper and deeper into this, it just feels like, Oda is like, I'm going to give you everything that you wanted, minus probably some huge Raftel or Void Century reveals. But we might, get some clues or get that as well. I mean, who knows at this point? And it's pretty exciting that we're calling this Odins Flashback, and that's what it is. It is from his perspective, but in many ways, this is morphed into a Roger and Whitebeard flashback as well, because, I mean, the next story that is teased at the end of this chapter is Roger and Whitebeard's last fight. Roger here admitted to being sick, knows that his journey does not have much longer, and recognizes that this might be the last time that he has a bout with his rival. Obviously, this is related to Odin, and I suspect after this fight, Odin will join Roger, but I mean, this is as much about Roger and Whitebeard as it would be Odin. And again, I'm really not sure whether I want to get my hopes up, if I want to place my expectations or have any expectations for this flashback, because we're still not sure what we're going to get. But this slight shift in tone, focusing on the legends Whitebeard and Roger, fills me with anticipation for the next couple chapters as to what Oda might or might not reveal or hint at. But yeah, I'm really loving all the little nuggets that Oda is throwing into this flashback regarding Odin's time on Whitebeard's ship. We got to see Blackbeard join the crew as an orphan. This is something that I don't think is groundbreaking. We kind of got this impression / confirmation at some time earlier. In a really old SBS, Oda drew childhood Blackbeard, and he looks much the same as he looks here, and I think that from the visuals, how he's drawn, the way that he looks, you could gather that he was, an orphan or out on his own. I'll be honest with you, my initial impression is I'm filled with irritation at Blackbeard. Being, in the situation that he was, practically begging to join the Whitebeard Pirates. We know now from future Blackbeard that his intention all along, apparently, was to join Whitebeard for the chance of obtaining the fruit that he was looking for. But it's just like, how unappreciative can you be to a person or a group of people that did nothing but love you? It makes my heart sick. And this just seems really apparent right now because we are also getting Orochi's flashback, but to me there's a lot of similarity between Orochi and Blackbeard. Both essentially orphans, poor, taken in by friendly, kind people, but from the onset intended to betray them, given the opportunity. I wonder if that's a coincidence or not. We learned of the 5 families that were daimyos below the Kozuki in this chapter. And an interesting note, and this was pointed out in the Jaimini's Box translation note, but all of the names have something to do with moons, with the exception of the Kurozumi clan or Orochi's clan. So Kozuki translates as light moon, Kozuki. Shimotsuke translates as frost moon. Fugetsu probably translates as wind moon. Amatsuke translates as heaven moon. And Uzuki probably translates as rain moon. And then you have Kurozumi, which translates as black coal. I think that Oda's focus on these names all being related to moons, with the exception of Kurozumi, is intentional. And my mind wants to find meaning here. But I want to make this very clear. My assumption is that these names of these families are ancient. Speaking specifically about Amatsuke, we know that this is Toki's maiden name, and we also know that she is basically from the Void Century. I think that this is true of all of these family names. I really want to know what the significance is of all of these names, with the exception of Kurozumi, relating to moons. There's a really old One Piece theory that what the D actually means, or what it represents, the symbol it represents, is the half moon. And there's a lot of speculation that maybe the D's originated from the moons in One Piece. We know space pirates exist. We know at least some people came down from the moons to inhabit the Earth, because at the very least we have the Skypians, the Shandorians. So the connection here is that these families, in my opinion, are likely members of the Ancient Kingdom, secretly D's. For the most part, sharing moon in their name seems significant to me. But yeah, to craft a theory around this, based on some other speculations that we've already made in the past, we know that the Kozuki and Wano itself is directly tied to the Ancient Kingdom most likely, and the Void Century, because the Kozuki clan were the ones to create the poneglyphs. Another community speculation is that the initial D in Monkey D. Luffy, the D family, is also related to these poneglyphs. They're essentially the descendants of the Ancient Kingdom. And so we are assuming that the Kozuki were allies with, were part of in some way, the Ancient Kingdom, and they are the kings, the leaders of Wano since the Void Century. Then I presume that most of their vassals, most of their retainers, those under them, the other powerful families, were also as well. So the Fugetsu, the Uzuki, the Shimotsuke, and the Amatsuke. These are Ancient Kingdom families, and although we don't see the D explicitly in their name, I presume that it should be there. And it's worth bearing in mind here that Law told us that the D is supposed to be a hidden initial, which is why he didn't walk around saying, "I'm Trafalgar D. Water Law." That was his secret that we discovered. And so while the Kozuki and the Matsuke and all of these other clans are very likely to be, it's easy to speculate them to be D families, to be Ancient Kingdom families, you also have Kurozumi here, who I would suspect is the same. And so right here I think that we can find another possible connection between Blackbeard and Orochi. I think most fans have this thought at some point reading or watching One Piece, but generally speaking, I think that there's a division between our understanding of the D family, what that means, the kinds of people that usually have it, and Blackbeard. Blackbeard is like the black sheep. We look at him and we think, you know, he's a D, but not really. And so the concept of inherited will in One Piece is very strong. If you have a great desire for your life and you're not able to achieve it during your lifetime, then you pass it down to the next generation. And I think that this is the impression that we get about the D initial. Like everybody who carries it has inherited the will of the Ancient Kingdom, acknowledged or understood or not. It in some way could even influence or affect these people's very natures. You know, I think Oda toys around with the idea of destiny, but I think that it's very real in One Piece. And you look at Luffy's desire for adventure, for exploration. I like to view that as inherited. The wills of his ancestors being passed down to him. And you know, this even works if it's indirect, like Luffy began to dream of adventure, of becoming a pirate because of Shanks, who in part may have received that from Gold D. Roger, who in part may have received that from somebody else, and you go up and up the line until you reach the Ancient Kingdom and the Void Century. Like an inherited ideology, way of life. And so this brings us back to Blackbeard, and people speculate the very same thing about Blackbeard, but they wonder whether or not at some point down the line or up the line, however you want to look at it, there was a split in the ideology of what the D family really wanted to stand for. The exact will that they were passing on, what they wanted to achieve. So yeah, we have the D initial, and if you have this, we assume that you're part of the D family, but in reality, there are two distinctly different D families. Luffy and Ace and Roger and Law are part of the good half, and the bad half includes somebody like Blackbeard and maybe Orochi. You know, I'm reminded of Rayleigh and Luffy's conversation in Sabaody. Rayleigh asks Luffy whether or not he believes that he can conquer the new world, and Luffy says, "I'm not gonna conquer anything. The one who is the most free is the Pirate King." Luffy doesn't want control, he doesn't want authority, he doesn't want power in and of itself. He just wants to be free. Rayleigh tells us that Roger was the very same, and watching Odins Flashback, it's pretty clear that he is also exactly the same. Obviously here, Luffy and Roger are Ds, and I highly suspect that Odin is one as well. Odin always telling us, "I feel too cramped in here, I want to be free, I want to free Wano, I want to free myself, I want to adventure." And whenever people try to give him power, authority, he doesn't want it. And then you look at Blackbeard, and then you look at Orochi, and I think that it's easy to say, wow, this seems like an intentional contrast. Another speculation I think worthy to throw in here while we're discussing all of this is the idea that, you know, we don't know exactly how the Ancient Kingdom didn't beat the 20 Kings or the world government, possessing 3 world-destroying weapons. And so some people wonder whether or not there might have been internal conflict within the Ancient Kingdom. One half of the Ds versus the other half. They were possibly fighting themselves as much as they were fighting the world government. Another common idea is that the Ancient Kingdom was betrayed by somebody from within. My general headcanon about the ancient weapons is the reason why the ancient kingdom didn't win is because they didn't want to use the weapons as weapons. They were tools to some other end, although they were capable of destroying the world. Maybe some of the D's actually wanted to use the ancient weapons as weapons. One of my important core theories about One Piece is that the ancient kingdom was not a traditional kingdom, it was a kingdom of pirates. The OG pirates who back in the day sang Bink Sake. And I think that thinking about this, given what we've learned recently, is kind of interesting, right? It's supposed to be the ancient kingdom versus the 20 kings versus the world government. And so this fight is sort of embodied in modern times of like Gold D. Roger fighting against the Marines against the Celestial Dragons. But you know, while Roger is fighting the Marines and attempting to discover the poneglyphs, he is also fighting other pirates. And I think that this idea is best encapsulated from things that we learned recently, like Roger fighting against the Marines, but actually he teams up with them to defeat the Rock's pirates. Perhaps a pirate crew who embodies a completely different ideology from Roger and his ancestors. And this all brings us to one of the core concepts that Oda began One Piece with, that we learned of in the original drafts of One Piece. There were two distinctly different kinds of pirates. On one hand, you had the Peace Main pirates, or the pirates like Roger and like Luffy, who wanted adventure and to make friends. And then on the other hand, you had the Morganeers, who wanted power, who wanted to conquer. I like to think in the current story that Oda decided to combine both pirates, which is why the terms no longer exist. Historically, there were just pirates, and it wasn't until some time during the Void Century that this one entire group, this D, this ancient kingdom, perhaps became two. But honestly, guys, I think that I've rambled enough here. Going back to what we were initially talking about, which was Oda's nuggets that he was dropping in Odin's Flashback on his time on Whitebeard's ship. We can see a little snippet of Odin and Toki's relationship, their romance, and that we learned that both Hiyori and Momonosuke were born on Whitebeard's ship. I gotta be real, guys, Toki is kind of an enigma to me. Because on one hand, it seems like she has all this foresight, she knows where to be, she has all these plans for the future, and on the other hand, she seems very much uncertain about what she is doing, or very, very vaguely certain. I'm really curious how her powers work. You know, I think that some people may not like this, but I think that it's definitely plausible that Toki doesn't really have a power as much as she just has intuition. Like, when the right thing is happening, she just feels it, she knows. I guess what I'm saying here is that her ability to see into the future, not only just to travel into the future, but to see into the future, is very, very limited. Or on the other hand, maybe she just likes to keep her secrets. But you know, a detail from this chapter that I thought was very, very low-key, but important, is Toki tells us that she knows that her parents are from Wano, but she herself, she doesn't know where she was born. I think that this is a subtle reminder or hint that the ancient kingdom, which I assume that Wano was a part of, or certain families from Wano were a part of, they were travelers. In a way, her story could be very much the same as someone like Momonosuke or Hiyori. Yeah, their father, their parents are from Wano, but where were they born? At sea. And given a slightly different path, they, like Toki, may have never actually visited Wano in their lifetimes. But anyway, the parts of Odin on Whitebeard's ship represented the very beginning of the chapter and the very end of the chapter, but the meat of the chapter revealed how Orochi rose to power and became the Shogun. And yeah, guys, we all know Whitebeard and Roger hype is real, but the middle of this chapter, for me, was the best part of the chapter. Once Oda throws in a little mystery, he already knows that he's got me hook, line, and sinker. Who the hell is this old witch? On one hand, I don't want to get carried away. On the other hand, I just cannot help myself. It is very possible that this person isn't really of any significance outside of this flashback, right? I think that we're led to believe the most likely conclusion is that she is Orochi's grandmother, or something, great-grandmother, something to that effect. And we also know that she is no longer alive. She is dead, because she doesn't have her devil fruit anymore. Mr. 2 has her devil fruit, therefore she is dead. So with this established, Oda could theoretically tie off the storyline here, and this character doesn't have to relate to anything else. But on the other hand, there is so much potential here. And I think that there is reason to speculate at least a little bit. So yeah, guys, let's get a little carried away. As several people pointed out to me on Twitter, when this old witch transformed her face using the Mane or main fruit, she appeared as someone who should definitely be of interest to you. One of her faces, no doubt, he was younger of course, but there is zero doubt one of those faces was Shiki's. She also tells us that she left Wano country for some period of time. So this old witch likely to me became a pirate. In order for the mane or main fruit to work, you actually have to touch somebody. So this means that she touched Shiki. In my opinion, this is not a particularly easy thing to do and get away with. We also know that Shiki was previously a member of the Rocks Pirates, which fits at least somewhat to her timeline of returning to Wano. All of this taking place approximately 10 years after the Rocks Pirates were defeated. So yeah, just straight up guys, I think that this person could have been a member of the Rocks Pirates. Or if she wasn't, at least she posed as a member of the Rocks Pirates. Another person that we also know that was a member of the Rocks Pirates was Kaido. She tells Orochi specifically to start manufacturing weapons, and in doing so, gain the business of powerful people. And then who happens to stroll in here? Kaido does. And to be honest with you, if Shiki hadn't been captured a few years later, I wonder whether or not he would be part of all this as well. I very much wonder whether or not this entire situation was orchestrated by this old witch. She influenced Orochi to prepare Wano, and at the same time influenced former members of the Rocks and powerful pirates such as Kaido and maybe even Shiki to prepare for developments within Wano. Another theory that I see floating around there is whether or not she may potentially have been a member of Cypherpole. I think that it's worth noting here that Kaido isn't the only person dealing arms from Wano with Orochi. The world government is doing it as well. And I think that it is implied to the audience that this is a service that the world government actually needs. They need to be able to purchase large quantities of high quality weapons from some island or some nation that isn't a part of the world government. They need weapons that cannot be traced back to themselves. Because if you remember, they are funneling these weapons through the black market to countries in order to instigate war and support the side that they feel like they have the most control over, and continue to oppress them. And I don't think that this just has to do with the Revolutionary Army. Obviously, we learn of this through the context of the Revolutionary Army sort of trying to free countries and the world government fighting against that. I think that this is something the world government has wanted to do or has actually done for hundreds of years. How exactly do they conquer the world? Do they instigate war in peaceful places in order to destabilize these islands and then take over? So in my opinion, guys, the old witch merely suggesting this idea, having been the one to come up with it, reveals some significant knowledge about how she understands the intricacies of the powers at play in the world. In my opinion, it is totally feasible for her to secretly be a member of Cypherpole. It could also be true that she was a member of Cypherpole and infiltrated the Rocks Pirates. I mean, frankly, in the last several hundred chapters, we have seen this idea a lot. Stussy infiltrating Big Mom, Corazon infiltrating Doflamingo, even now X-Drake infiltrating Kaido. This is clearly a tactic of the world government. But anyway, guys, regardless of how deep it actually goes, I like to think of this old witch as bringing together multiple different core plot lines for One Piece, whether Oda chooses to reveal it here and now or later. But yeah, honestly, it's just incredible. Really interesting to think about, once again, this devil fruit that she possesses and how game-changing it could really be on a global scale. Even in this chapter alone, I was forced to read it twice. Because initially I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. I read the chapter at face value, and it wasn't until the reread that I was like, wait a second. This old witch was impersonating Odin and Sukiyaki the entire time. Odin never called Orochi his little brother. That was the old witch. Sukiyaki never said that he would give the title of interim shogun to Orochi. Again, that was the old witch. This is just the kind of things that I love, and although this fruit may not be used in the same way, because Mr. 2 has it, we know that he's a good guy. I doubt that he's going to be playing these kinds of roles. I look at someone like Katarina Devon of the Blackbeard Pirates, whose fruit essentially does the same thing, and I'm like really hyped. She could theoretically appear anywhere as anyone. Tell me that's not scary. But yeah, guys, this was an incredible chapter for me. Obvious 10 out of 10. But as always, I'm curious as to what you guys think, whether you noticed something from the chapter that I might have missed. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.